This is the BBC.
Hello, I'm Samira Ahmed and welcome to the Front Row podcast. Today, exclusively for our podcast listeners, we've included in the programme an extended interview with Robert Pattinson. Hello, tonight Robert Pattinson on playing a dirty, rotten scoundrel in Good Time and leaving the vampire world of the Twilight films far behind. Poet Ian Macmillan on writing an opera full of the cadences of South Yorkshire dialect. As Ben Whishaw charms playing the animated Paddington 2, we look at the art of great voices behind puppets. And we'll be announcing the winner of the Goldsmiths Prize for Experimental Fiction live on the programme. The actor Robert Pattinson became internationally famous in the Twilight films alongside his then partner Kristen Stewart. Both have since made astute choices about the films they go for. Pattinson has worked with David Cronenberg and Werner Herzog, and when he spotted a still from Heaven Knows What, directed by Ben and Josh Safdie, he decided to approach the two to ask if they could work together. The result is Good Time, the story of a New York heist gone wrong, clearly inspired by Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets. Pattinson is Connie, protective of his younger brother Nick, who has learning difficulties, but then takes him to rob a bank. Everything unravels from there. Here they are trying to look inconspicuous in the street, straight after, as a police car hovers.
Just keep your head now. I'm going to pull back up. Just don't say anything, all right? Okay. Don't look at them. Don't be scared. All right. Let me do all the talking.
Hey, fellas, where are we going? Can I talk to you for a minute? First of all, could you take your hoodie off for me?
Wait, what did we do wrong?
No,
Hey, you with the black sweatshirt.
Yo, my man, turn around.
He's all right. We didn't do
Yo,
anything wrong.
get back here.
Ben Safdie as Nick and Robert Pattinson as Connie in Good Time. The film was shot on location on the streets of Queens, often close up on Pattinson's face, and was selected to compete for the Palme d'Or at Cannes. But it is Pattinson's performance that holds your attention. His Connie is charming, desperate, and it must be said, ultimately a violent and utterly selfish piece of work. When I met Robert Pattinson, I wondered what he made of his character.
He is a charismatic but narcissistic psychopath, basically. But I've always found it kind of interesting to make an audience complicit with a character's actions. It's quite rare to really feel, even slightly confused about what a story is, or how, it's nice to not know how you're supposed to feel with a story. But it's a kind of strangely manipulative movie as well, because it's really presented a character as a hero. But I think the character thinks of himself as a hero as well. He thinks he has absolutely no awareness that he's bringing kind of tragedy into people's lives. He just thinks every action is as out of love for his brother, and he has absolutely no awareness that he's the one who's put his brother in jeopardy in the first place.
It is very up close and personal as we follow, your scrapes. Things start to go wrong so quickly after the bank robbery. The camera is often very close on your face. How easy is it to perform that way? A whole film shot really almost as if from your point of view and certainly up close in your world.
It helps that I was very comfortable with the director of photography, and Sean Price Williams, who shot it. It's a big, big man, and there were so many scenes in the movie where we're like in a car together, or there's a scene where we shot a shower scene where we're both in the shower together. It's not in the movie anymore. To be in a very intimate scenario with someone who's maybe 6 inches taller than me and big, big beard and long hair and stuff. It's kind of it's interesting to know that someone can be that size and so nimble to get things. He was literally hands-on. He would literally push me into a better shot. You'd suddenly feel his hand in the middle of a scene pushing me further into a room or something. And with a lot of other people, I wouldn't be able to deal with that at all. But I was really trusting in the process, and I knew if he was pushing me somewhere, it was for the right reasons. And
in terms of getting into the mindset of Connie, who is this unpleasant lowlife, he's obviously had a criminal life most of his time, and is, as you say, he's essentially a psychopath. How do you prepare for a role like that?
I am a psychopath. I'm just attracted to things that are kind of audacious and feel like they're pushing the boundaries, or maybe even across the boundary of what people think is acceptable in a movie, and what seems exploitative, or everything which seems a little bit iffy. It kind of, I get, it's my kind of immature provocateur kind of attitude.
Well, there's two things in that film which I thought of when you talked about, pushing the line and provocative. There's a sort of relationship of a kind with a 16-year-old girl who's quite vulnerable. There's the whole violence and the exploitation of very vulnerable people. You presumably saw those in the script and thought, yep, I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, because there's also kind of, it's a strange character. I always sort of saw Connie as quite an asexual person, in that any kind of sexuality that he expresses is always to do something with it. He doesn't really seem to have conventional feelings and desires for anything. Because I always kind of like the idea of him as a con artist. I think a lot of con artists, the best ones, genuinely don't know if they're lying or not. He thinks he's in love with her. He can't, and also, can't tell. He can't tell how old she is. He thinks he's on this kind of ordained mission, where he thinks he's saving everybody, and he thinks everyone who comes into his life, it's for a reason, it's for a purpose, and blah blah. He genuinely can't tell that his actions are in any way judgeable. He thinks he's some kind of prophet or something. But it's interesting. It's kind of to try to play something where you really have to not judge the character. I mean, well, at least try not to. Or at least try and make him. Not really likable. I don't really care about making them likable, but just interesting, I guess.
Well, definitely. It's sort of pretty role in every sense. You have, if I may say so, terrible hair at the start of this film. And I remember once seeing your Edward Twilight doll in a toy shop many years ago. And I wondered, is going a bit skanky, partly very deliberate rebellion against that past?
I don't know. I mean, I sometimes look at things where I'm supposed to be better looking or worse looking. And I'm like, there's scenes in Twilight where I feel like I look terrible. And it's like you've got caked on geisha makeup and sort of kabuki makeup, and I just find it fascinating when why someone thinks that is in any way attractive. It just is bizarre to me. I mean, I don't really deliberately try and fight against anything. I mean, with this, I wanted to look different from how someone could recognize me as a person, because we were playing with a lot of first time actors and stuff, and I just didn't want them to feel like I was in a different position to them. I wanted them to feel like I was street cast in the same way that they were as well. So I didn't really break character that much, and I think a lot of the look was to kind of convince myself more than anything.
Choosing the right roles is always difficult for any actor who was first associated with kind of a big sort of brand. And after the Twilight films, I wonder if, like Daniel Radcliffe in Harry Potter, you've deliberately sort of sought out roles which break with it, dare I say, which are weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you just try and find things that are interesting. I didn't really have a set plan of what I wanted to do. I mean, in general, I respond a lot to people's previous work, and so if I see a movie that I really love, I'll seek out the director and try and have a relationship with them.
You did that with this, didn't you, ahead of Good Time?
I do pretty much every single movie I've done for the last 5 or 6 years. Because I've just gone after the directors myself.
David Cronenberg would be another example.
Cronenberg was the one person who that kind of came out of nowhere with Cosmopolis, but it clicked something in my head, and I realised, these people who are heroes, you can actually work with them. Yeah, so I really went after people like Herzog and stuff like that. But you kind of forget when someone's become a very iconic artist. You forget that they're people. Yeah, so it's interesting. And almost everybody will do a meeting with you, and maybe something will work, maybe something won't.
You recently won the Maverick Award at the Savannah Film Festival because of the roles you choose, which suggests a kind of successful career plan as such.
I mean, there is a sort of vague plan. I mean, it's kind of, I like doing things that are scary. I guess I got lucky in that a lot of people, when I was doing Twilight, everyone was asking, "Oh, you're scared of being typecast?" and blah blah. And I was never consciously scared of it, but I guess in the back of my mind there is something which is kind of, you don't want to end up pigeonholed. So I want to do completely the opposite thing every single time.
Can I ask how you look back on those films?
I mean, it was all a great experience for me. I mean, I think a lot of people who got into big franchise stuff they've ended up being really burnt by it and disheartened. But I had a really great experience the whole time. moments of kind of stress and pressure, but really it was a young studio making it. I liked everyone who I was working with, and it hasn't stopped me from doing anything that I want to do. So it's kind of, I mean, there's literally pretty much no downside at all, and it was really fun, and I like the movies, and and also I approach them exactly the same as I approach everything now. I mean, I think people think that if you're doing a movie that ends up being commercial, you think differently about it, but I've just approached everything exactly the same way.
What next? And is there indeed a kind of a particular thing you really want to do still?
I'm working with one of my favourite directors, Claire Denis, right now in Germany. I have to go back again tomorrow. We're doing this movie with Juliette Binoche, which is an incredibly bizarre sci-fi movie, sort of about psychosexual experimentation in space.
Yay!
It's very specific. And enforced pregnancies.
Not yours.
No, I know. Even though I would love to do that. That is what I'd love to do. The remake of, what's the movie with Danny DeVito and Schwarzenegger? Twins, yeah. I'd love to do Twins.
The very level-headed Robert Pattinson.